looking for it.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, scholars. Let's get this started. We're going to try something a little new. We're going to warm up with something easy. Check out this claim I wrote on the board. Now let's think hypothetically if I sent that claim to a university. All right.
We did
All right.
other things.
You did? Okay, so don't spoil it yet. Maurice, can you read the claim for me?
I should be accepted as a student at Northwestern University.
All right, Ms. Keller, can you read the evidence that I provided to them?
I play point guard in my high school basketball team.
That's right. All right. So let's say I threw this claim out to Northwestern University. I should be accepted as a student at Northwestern University. And they ask why. And this is the evidence I provided to them. All right?
Unless you have an explanation.
What is it, Isaiah?
Unless you have an explanation.
All right, so what's missing here? So what's missing? Think on it. An explanation, right?
And that
Play basketball.
Huh?
Just because you play basketball doesn't mean anything. Like they gotta know if you were a strong player.
See, wait a minute. You started with just because you're a basketball, but then you started mentioning what type of player I am, right? So, think about this. How can I modify that evidence? Don't worry about the claim right now, because I know folks like to say, well, I'll modify the claim. How do I modify that evidence to make my claim stronger, right? Think on that. Ms. Nadia kind of started us off. What do you think, Ms. Teresa? How can I strengthen that evidence? Make it a little stronger.
Give a good reasonable evidence why you should. Like, I don't want to say.
Yeah, no, you're on the right track. Hassan.
I think you should talk about your basketball team and stuff like that. Like tell them about your basketball team so it'll match up with the claim.
Right? So you're talking about making a connection, right?
Yeah.
Ms. Felicia?
For that thing, like you, like anybody can be like a basketball player or whatever, but it's like a certain, I don't know how to say it, like you have to tell like what type of basketball player you are, like what type of student athlete you are.
That's
like,
right.
You have to do multiple things, like you have to have a good behavior, you have to have the grades for it, you have to like have like scores and like a lot of evidence to back up why you're a good basketball player, like defensive wise, offensive wise.
Right? So she established something really interesting, this whole idea that to be a basketball player in a high school team, they monitor your grades. They monitor how you behave on the court. Sometimes how you behave off the court. Excellent, right? So you're expanding it a little further. What about the idea of what a point guard is? What is it, Isaiah?
A leader.
A leader, right? The point guard is typically he's the guy that surveys the field. He's the guy that they throw the ball into on the opposite side of the court and drives in before he gets to the court side where they have to score on. So I could play around with this evidence, right? So essentially what I wanted to do with this initial exercise, some of you folks already are exposed to this, but just this idea of connecting evidence to your claim, making that strong connection, and then expanding on it. Ms. Felicia did a really good job of just taking it to the next step further. That expansion, that explanation of what I mean by this, right? So if I provide that to a university, they're going to be like, and what? Well, let me open it up. Let me unpack this idea, right? So, now, put this objective right quick. I should have done that already. I'm going to have one of you guys read this for me. What is it?
It is just for today.
Well, this is just like an exercise that we're going to do to, the objective
I
was.
can't see as it is, so I was
Oh,
wondering why you couldn't be all the way back there.
that's true. I'm sorry. That was my bad. Also, you want to switch over? Actually, you can move. You can move here. I was going to sit here, but you can move here for me. Is that a little better?
You can
I was
switch.
wondering.
You're sure? Well, I'm not going to have you all read too much on the board from here on out. All right, check it out. So, Ms. Teresa, read that for me. What's our objective for today?
Prove their ability towards connecting claims to the evidence and explain their evidence in paragraph form.
Exactly, right? So we're we're working on those two small parts. So far, you folks are doing a really great job of building claims and focusing them up, tightening them up, right? So what we notice on the papers is that we might need a little bit of practice on working with evidence, right? You're doing a great job of structuring it so that you provide them 3 paragraphs of evidence right after. Now we just want to connect it a little stronger, and we want to be able to explain them a little better, right? So, I wrote this up for you. We got a couple of steps that we're going to review. All right. Actually, you know what? I'm going to have Miss Felicia read step 1. Loud and proud.
Not that long.
Well,
Summarize your piece of evidence.
all right. Summarize your piece of evidence. All right, Isaiah, number 2.
Provide your interpretation of the evidence.
That's right. And Maurice, number 3.
Explain how the evidence supports your claim.
That's right. So Ms. K touched on this with y'all. You guys got a graphic for it, right? So today, I got another, I know we hand a bunch of these to y'all, but another one of these, if you could pass these down for me, Ms. Kiara, we got 4 here. This is another cheat sheet that you can kind of unpack a little further, right? So what I'm going to do with you now is I'm going to get my hands dirty with you, and I'm going to show you my thought process in interpreting some evidence after a claim is presented, right? I'm going to sit amongst you. Y'all mind if I sit with you? Is that all right? No? You don't? All right. So let's go through this. I'll put this back up. And I'll only call on folks that can see the board. This sheet is yours. You can write on it. Go ahead and write your names up top. See, I even dated it so you know exactly the day that you get it. All right, so this top part is pretty straightforward. We're going to read through it and fill out these blanks. Real easy, y'all know the steps. So number 1, the 3 steps to explaining evidence in the top part of this handout that I put for you guys. All right, number 1, Ms. Kiara, what do you need to fill that blank? Number 1. Summarize. Let's write that. I'm actually going to write on mine. All right, number 2. Alassane, what do you put in that blank? Huh? Number 2.
Provide your evidence of the evidence.
Close.
Interpretation.
Interpretations. Let's write that. My handwriting is terrible. It's there on the board. All right. And number 3. Explain how the evidence fill in the blank. Maurice, what are we missing?
Fits back to your claim.
That's right. Supports your claim. All right, so this first one, it's a freebie. You guys are going to watch me kind of work through this. In fact, all the answers are on here already. So, I worked with the claim, Akil is ashamed of his culture. I stole that from one of y'all. Did we find out who wrote that? Or did anyone admit it? It was a good one. I saw
Was
it
it written in
twice.
all caps?
No. It was it was like in small letters, and there was an or in another one of them.
I have more, but I write mine in all caps.
Because everything you write is really important. Okay.
Told y'all it was
I like it. Huh? It was you. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, good. All right, cool. Well, I stole it
I'm
again.
not even sure, but I did write an or though.
Okay, well, that was you. So I stole it again. All right. So Akil is ashamed of his culture, right? Claim number 1. So I went through the reading, and I was like, what paragraph, what section can I get some evidence for this question, right? So I went right to the one y'all discussed today about the Indiana Jones quote. So I wrote it in for you. Y'all talked it through. So this is the way I saw it, right? So Akil is ashamed of his culture. I argued, or at least I argued toward this idea that he is, right? Now, I want to emphasize this point. These paragraphs, these readings, they're interpretive, right? You could conceivably get evidence for either way. So this is the way I interpret it. It doesn't mean it's the right answer. Y'all can go either way with it, right? As long as you build a strong claim, you find that evidence and connect that evidence, right? What do you think, Ms. Felicia? Does that make sense? Yeah, all right. So for my summary, I put according to Sharma on page 20, paragraph 3. See how I referenced it? When he was 8, the movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom released and featured a scene where Indians are eating snakes and monkey brains. On top of that, he was one of the few Indian boys at his school, and he bought lunches that were unique to his culture. These details resulted in an embarrassing event in his formative years, right? So that's essentially, I summarized what the author said right there, in my own words, because that's what you're doing. All you're doing is summarizing in your words what it is that you get from that piece of evidence. But ideally, you're letting us know where it is, so we, as teachers or readers, can just go right to it and find it, right? Now, the next section, it says interpretation, right? So this is when I'm going to make an inference. This is when I'm going to interpret it, right? I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, all right, this is my opinion about what he's saying. So I summarized it, now I'm going to make an opinion. So it says, in making this comment, Sharma makes it apparent clear that he was the odd person out and wanted to fit in, as he chose to make fun of his culture by admitting, see I put that in quotes, his food was weird by telling the black boy he was eating steak. So that was my interpretation. Did y'all interpret that paragraph in a different way? I know there were a few folks that didn't feel that way. I know Isaiah felt different. Pretty sure you did, about that paragraph, that he wasn't making fun of himself. About that whole snake thing.
I was just confused whether he ate the snake. He had a snake or not. They were saying he didn't, but I mean, I don't think you would put himself in that position if he wanted to fit in.
Why did them boys think that there was a possibility that there would be a snake on the plate? Stereotypes. Right. Perpetuated by what? The movie? Have y'all seen the movie? Mm-hmm. It's a really strong scene, actually. But anyways, so that was my interpretation. He was essentially admitting by saying that, oh, I got a snake on my plate. He was basically admitting that, my culture is just not good, right? He was indirectly criticizing.
Not really good, but
A lot of folks hate snake.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah, don't even. I wouldn't. It's just that movie was it was such a stark contrast to say what people, normally eat, right?
People always lie, though. They always say it tastes like chicken. Don't.
You'd be surprised how much tastes like chicken. All right, so check it out. So number 3, right? Number
like
3 is it?
scrambled eggs.
Huh?
Tastes
Like
like chicken.
what?
Yeah, say that too.
All right, so number 3, so this is the important one, right? This is the one that I think a lot of us need to work on. I mean, let me tell you something. I sometimes need to work on this, the explanation part, right? Number 3, explain how your evidence supports your claim. So you lay out the evidence, you know what I mean? Your paragraph is nice and neat. It's got like an intro sentence or something like that. Now you got to lay it on the line for us, right? Explain to us why you're using this quote. It's a great quote. That whole section is with the snake in the movie. Now tell us why, right? So how does it support the claim? Explain the reason for using this evidence, right? So I put, therefore, by blurting out that he was eating snake, Akil admitted a fault in his cultural norms. This is important because Akil admitted in a subtle manner that he is ashamed of his culture. So I want y'all to underline this idea. This is important, right? This is important in number 3. It starts in that second sentence. What I'm telling you is this is how I'm justifying it. This is something that you should hone in on. This is why it's important. Right? So, you've witnessed me go through the process. Pretty straightforward. Now we're going to jump into an exercise where we work together, all right? Build our own connections between the claim and the evidence, and then explain a little bit, right? So, starting right under number 3, there's a section that says modeling practice with partners, right? So I put 2 claims this time. Mine had 1, which was Akil is ashamed of his culture. I put 2, just to give y'all some options, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to choose one of these. Either Akil is unsure of what culture to claim as his own, or Akil is ashamed of his past. Now, Akil is ashamed of his past. I want y'all to notice that I highlighted past. That's a little different from culture, right? Because he talks about his childhood, he talks about experiences in his childhood. Interpret that how you may. This is what's beautiful about some of our assessment questions. They're interpreted. But as long as y'all have strong claims, evidence, and you explain that evidence, you should be good to go. Right? Isn't that how the ACT essay works? Like they'll throw a subject at you, and it could be something along the lines of fast food restaurants shouldn't be open in I don't know, rural areas or something like that. And you can argue it either way. You can say, oh, they should open up a ton of, or you can say that or whatever. As long as you
back it up better.
exactly right.
A lot too, but not consistent.
Is that how you did it?
Not exaggerated. You can't lie a lot.
Well,
Lie a little bit about the evidence because you really can't. I can't.
there's a lot. No, there's a lot of playroom. There's a lot of playroom actually. You could just go nuts as long as you provide evidence, you back it up. Yeah, but I said some crazy stuff, and I did pretty well. Anyways, so that's what we're gonna do. Turn to the next page, right? Well, actually, starting on this page, possible pieces of evidence. Here's the thing, I focused on 2 paragraphs, only 2 paragraphs, only 2 sections that y'all can choose to interpret. That seems restrictive. I think I picked pretty good paragraphs, but what I want you guys to get used to is interpreting specific sections, right? Being creative. I want y'all to be creative. So I highlighted section 4 and 8. So I think 4 is on page 20 and 8 is on page 21. So you can choose either of those. So either of these claims or either of these paragraphs. Interpret, be creative, and right here on page 2 of my handout, there's little sections where you could fill in your different things, all right? You got the summary of evidence, you got the interpretation, make an inference, and how the evidence supports the claim, just like what Ms. K taught you, all right? So we're gonna partner up. That's why I kind of switched y'all up so you can partner up with different people. And when you fill these out, for each partner group, you're gonna fill in the exact same thing. You're working together on this, right? Think about that. You're gonna be keeping these, so it's all right. But like I said, you're gonna work together. When I say go start, pick a claim, and pick one of these paragraphs to interpret, go nuts. I'm serious. I just want to see y'all work and try to get through this together. So Kiara, Teresa, Maurice, Isaiah, Miss Nadia, Miss Felicia, and Miss Alsan. Huh?
You know?
You know, with me. I mean, I figured I'd just sit here and work with whoever's sitting next to me. And since you're cut off, you're with me.
No, I thought it was because I don't know.
No, well, I just picked random. It doesn't really matter.
You're not slow, kid.
No, I picked random. It's fine.
Hey,
You don't want to be my
Which
partner?
called the room?
No, I thought you were here because I was thinking I'm slow or something.
I figured I did this. I could just say, what is it, Miss Morris?
You took the SAT or the ACT?
I took the SAT and the SAT in order to get into teaching. Just because mine was 10 years ago. The last time I took the ACT, it was a different test. So I had to restudy it, take it again, and they gave me a week to study for it. So. Anyways, that writing section is no joke. They gave me 25 minutes on the ACT and 30 minutes for the SAT. And if you don't start writing, if you don't hit the ground running, you ain't gonna get the 1.5 page minimum that you need to generally get a good grade. So it's just about like getting it down. Don't overthink it. See, I see a lot of folks overthink this whole process. That's why we give you cheat sheets. Don't overthink it. Sometimes it's all about just following a pattern. You know what I mean? It's not as it's just not as like subtle as you think. It's just about interpreting the paragraphs, put it down. There's always a structure. So I keep looking at Teresa. I don't know because I'm sitting here. Yeah, no, I don't want. But all right, so get started. Y'all got a partner. You ready? Let's go.
Which one you
All right, which one you want?
All of this?
So we gotta pick a claim first, then we're gonna pick one of these paragraphs and that's like.
We could do.
So this one, remember, I feel it's a shame it's past. That was talking about him as a kid.
Which one do you want?
Or Akil is unsure of what culture the claim is.
Look at the paragraph.
So he's like,
I think this one.
He's a yes, he's a medium. Alright, cool.
No, I'm trying to, I think it's obvious that his
If you go.
on the Indian person.
Okay, so you got an opinion on this one, so let's do this one.
Okay.
Let's do the first one. Alright, boom. Alright, now, let's read these 2 paragraphs very quick and see which one you want to pick is the one you want to interpret. So there is.
They were cheerful people when they stayed up, they played cards with the enemies to the raising on Indian, and they teased one another for religiosity by burning loudly and crying Muhammad Smiths are related to a willing to spend money in a way that we were not. They went to feed the hut. This was stressful because periodically we had to treat.
That's a pretty good one. I cut this off. So my family is not Indian. Only when relatives were in town. We have relatives in Virginia, blah, blah, blah. So now let's look at this one. See if you want to use this one. I saw the world for the most part through the screen of fear and anger. Fear of our not having enough money to take care of my brother, anger at other people for not suffering the way I did. Almost 30 years have passed since then. My brother is dead now. And yet so much of my fear remains that his brother still there in the world of my child.
Page 2.
Right? So since we picked, yeah, go ahead.
Especially the ones that are
Yeah, Yeah, the first one's better for this one. Okay, that's a good idea. Alright, cool, let's do it.
What you think?
I agree, because I think if we pick Akil as a shame to just pass, the second one. Okay, cool, alright. So Mark Anthony, non-Indian food. So let's go ahead and summarize what he's saying here, right? So let's go through the numbers. So this is the first section right here. So what are we doing when we're summarizing the evidence? What does it say?
If somebody living in what the artist said in your word.
Right, so you're switching it up, right? You're writing it so that you understand. So let's see, how would you summarize that paragraph?
Scared.
Akil.
Right, so oh wow, that's a good way to start. So you want to start at Akil claims that, or was it? Or you want to do it according to, or I use
He
that?
still feels angry.
According to
Feels
never.
as though he still not want to take care of his brother, even though he's
Never
dead.
According to the,
You said he still feels scared
Never ate nothing.
and angry because he can't take care of his brother.
They never ate non-Indian food unless relatives were in town.
cool.
His
Yeah,
brother
you
dead.
just write the
That's
same thing
basically
together.
what he said.
You might have one person write it and then you can
Even-
copy it.
he
It's
said,
done. Just make sure you
My brother is
agree
dead
and you understand the direction
share
it's taking.
remain.
So according to the text,
So
Never ate non-Indian food unless relatives came in town. That's good, right?
so far,
Unless
unless relatives were in town.
Yeah.
I like that. What about
When they came, they stayed up
To add
and
to it,
played
like,
cards with other Indians who lived in
to say like he doesn't want to
So
go
wait, so okay, so
instead of like being afraid of that,
Oh.
being afraid that he can't fix
so
his brother, like
so it
paralyzed,
says so when they came and says
afraid to get back to that state of where he
His
was.
relatives.
When he was
Yeah.
a
Look at
child.
that, look at
Yeah,
that.
like he
tease
was
my
part of
mother
stuff.
or
How his
religiosity.
family wasn't.
How could you put this in that
He did
section?
say he's still living in a world of his
His
childhood.
relatives
He said he
were
no,
teasing his mom
he fears that as though he's still living his childhood.
and burping loudly and crying that Brahma, the Indian god, speaks. You gotta help me out too. If you don't think it's not true, you gotta.
No, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. We're gonna break it down. Okay, according to no, this is good so far actually.
Yes.
Never ate non-Indian food unless relatives were in town.
Like he is
I
angry
like hearing that.
because his dad or two parents ate.
Right? So check out that sentence. Our relatives are willing to spend money in a way that we will not. Right? So
I think what he mean by that is that they don't like spend their money on buying food. But and then yeah, they're
I was
They
thinking
made
the
like-
same
they made like
thing
some-
too. Like it's like
Yeah, exactly. They made like saying that
I
Americans
was
are willing
looking
to
at
spend
it
their
and I
money.
was like,
So let's take
So I think it shouldn't be angry.
their relatives
It
are
doesn't say
more
like he feels angry.
American culture than Indian culture.
That's actually better than ours. Willing, right? Willing to
He's defending his past.
American
So
culture.
because he's afraid to go back to how he was.
And check it out. It
It looks like he's
this is
ashamed.
stressful
He
because
to summarize it.
periodically we
Oh,
have
Yeah, you trying to
so
interpret.
there might be more to that stress, right? So maybe we just add this really stressed this out.
This really
So-
stresses Akil out.
That's it. Killer claims that he is ashamed of not having.
Don't write that down. No, what I just said.
No.
You just actually.
No, this really stressed that killed out, right? Cool. Alright, cool. Let's move on to interpretation.
Akil felt
Making inference.
afraid.
That's right. So we wrote according to the text, or Akil, he never ate Indian food unless relatives were in
Get back to
town.
that point.
His relatives were his mother's religion. Their relatives were more
So-
willing to
so-
adapt. We're teasing,
Akil
sorry.
felt so afraid in the beginning of
His
his life.
mother's
He
religion.
doesn't want to
Their
return.
relatives were more willing to adapt to American culture. This really stressed Akil out.
Yeah.
So, just by that summary, what would you infer? Like connecting it to the claim that we made. Akil is unsure of what culture the phrase is on.
And then
So
angry
it has to connect with
that he had to
Yeah,
go.
well, exactly. You're interpreting the summary. So you put that paragraph into your own words.
I'm gonna write it down first on my they
part
bring
of
up.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. So, let me read it to you. Ready? According to the text
I can read that.
slash Akil.
Let me see. According to the text, Akil, never in
We have to point out something.
never in Indian food unless
Oh, you're ready.
not Indian food unless relatives. Let me try to read it, man. A relative in town. Don't tell me. I want to relative in town. Akil? No, don't tell me though. In town.
Machine's in my handwriting, and he's like trying to read it. Whenever I fast, you can't read. I'm a typer.
So you technically don't have to
Part of that generation
write
that lost
that.
their handwriting.
You just have to say like.
We gotta write stuff all
So
day.
making fun of and testing his mother's religious, their
That's
relatives
stuff
are more
Yeah.
willing to adapt to American culture. This really stresses Akil out. See, I got it.
You could be a doctor. Or is it no, a pharmacist, because they gotta read the doctor's things, and the doctors are crazy.
I know, I can't read a doctor.
But the pharmacist can.
I don't know how they do that though.
I read them. Which are y'all moved on to interpretation? So now you got your summary, right, of whatever paragraph you chose. Now infer. Think beyond it, right? Like think what it means. How y'all do y'all moved on to any No. You're just working with, so all you're working with is one of these two, one claim and one of these two paragraphs. I didn't want to break your back. I just want you to get used to the process, right? So you're just picking one paragraph to the time. Now you're making an inference from it. You summarized it. You can even look back at the original. Now you make an inference. Now you're like, what does it mean? But make sure to connect it to that claim. Like use the claim as like a way to cheat whatever claim you used. Because that's that 3 you're going to be connected with together.
And making this comment, I don't know how to
So
fix
he
it
was
after that.
angry.
This is relative for teasing his mom, right?
So in other words,
It's stuck on his
Like, he still
so though
feels
he's
bad
an
about
adult now, he still feels scared about his, or fear and anger about his past.
Good job so far, scholars. You're thinking.
Sorry, so what? I said, in other words, he still feels fear and anger about his past. And basically, you don't want to go back to that.
So because he still feels anger.
It's basically like your summary. Almost.
Make sure to use those sentence starters. Sometimes that helps you put it into context. In making this comment, Akil's points that, in other words, that stuff helps out.
So
So use that sentence starter to kind of give you an idea of what it is that you're trying to do, right? So in making this comment, right? So you can look back at the original and look back at your summary. In making this comment, Akil, make your inference, right?
well, let's use this one. Middle. Sharman's point is that even though he is older,
Like why?
Still fear.
Or, you know.
going back to how he was.
That's a trip.
All right, right? So it's your turn to write. You cool with that?
And
Sorry.
Well, you gotta give me ideas too.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
So we're gonna start it off
He's
with
ashamed
the
of
standard.
Shaman.
In making this comment, Akil. So go ahead and write that down. In making this comment, Akil. In making this comment, Akil, so what do you think this comment kind of fleshes out?
What
Right?
comment? This one?
This one right here, the one that we summarized. And remember, we're doing Akil is unsure of what culture to claim as his own. So in making this comment that we found, that we made, what is he saying that lends to you the idea that he doesn't know what culture to vote for?
What gives me that?
Yeah.
That you know how his friends were making fun of him,
Yeah.
and they were like, he's eating snake,
Yeah.
and he was like, yeah, he's eating snake just to fit in.
All right. So what did his relatives do that was on part of that? What did his relatives do that was kind of like that?
His relatives,
Yeah.
they went to eat pizza,
Pizza Hut, that's one thing. What else?
and they were making fun of his
Right. So that's perfect. So in making this comment, Akil indicated or like says to the reader,
making this comment.
yeah. Well, you can see comment right here. Akil said,
Akil, so in making this comment,
oh, here, okay, so erase that because I think you already wrote that.
Especially in like sports line.
Makes it clear.
Like a softball player.
That the influence of his family, right? Does that make sense? The influence of his family pulled him in a different direction. Because his mom, well, after you, the influence of his family pulled him in a different direction. Right? So let's stop there because I want you to see how I feel like this. Because his mom obviously was religious.
Draw it back
She
to
was her cultural background, right? And his relatives were on the other side. They were talking about what they were talking about garbage, he was vegetarian, right? So pulled in different directions. But like his immediate family, like his mom was religious, but his relatives were more into American. How we doing? We're number 2? Oh, good job, y'all. Good job. We're moving right along. All right, so number 3. Ready? So how the evidence supports the claim. Explain the reason for using this evidence. Why'd y'all pick? Let's say you chose these paragraphs. I chose them for you. But let's say you chose these paragraphs. Why did you choose these paragraphs? And your cheat sheet is right there, probably number 2. Because your inference makes perfect sense. It connects to your claim.
Okay, so I chose this paragraph because my teacher, like, he showed me what was
A
that,
worksheet.
and he told me to
Yes.
use it.
I even told you what paragraph it was. Yeah. Don't write that. All right.
I'm
Just
not.
be inventive. That's pretty good. Be inventive. You know what I mean? But at the same time, convince me, right? Convince me. This is the point where you're like, all right, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is why I use this comment. Easy. So use them sentence starters. Get used to it. You guys are gonna you're gonna have access to this when you write. So you don't be afraid to use them sentence starters. So this matters or is important because, or ultimately or therefore. Use them fancy words. Everybody thinks you know what you're talking about. It's awesome. Right? So go ahead. Try it out. All right, so you heard my whole spiel. We're gonna work on interpretation now, right? So, I'm sorry, we're gonna jump to this actually. I'll make a copy of it.
how the evidence supports the claim.
That's right. Explain the reason why you use this right here.
No,
So-
you need to like these
But do we have to take it from there?
No, you're actually probably taking it from there.
well,
So, remember our claim?
Yeah.
Remember our claim? Akil is unsure of what culture the claim is his own. So right here, you put why you chose this specific piece of evidence. Why is it strong? Right? So you put something along the lines of this comment or this
This is important because
because. Go ahead and write that. This is important because. Don't be afraid to use them sentence starters. Do it.
it's important because let me read the
Read the summary again, and especially this. This is key. Remember, the step 2 is like key when you're thinking about step 3. Because it's one thing summarizing something; it's another thing to really break it down and interpret it. You got that one? Now read this one again, just to get it in your head.
Yeah, I got it.
right? So this is important because
This is important because Akil, am I gonna talk about this one?
you're gonna talk about that?
Okay.
Right, probably right here, right?
Yeah.
Because this, usually what's gonna happen is a lot of this step is gonna be in your head. You're gonna make that inference. So sometimes steps 2 and 3 are combined, right? As you think about it, I infer, and you drop it into the
This
explanation.
is important. This is important
This is
because
important because on the claim, it says Akil was unsure of what coaches to claim as his own. As that says, it said, his mom is a religious person, but his relatives aren't really, religious because they were making fun of teasing his mom about religious stuff.
That's right.
And his culture,
It's been bad.
that they don't,
It's
the
seems
other
like
is,
it went about fast.
you know what
You're on
I'm
the right
like,
track.
I know what I'm trying to say, but I can't like put it, like, it's in my brain, but I don't know how
And I,
to.
I see where you're going. You're going in the exact right direction, right? You're unpacking this idea that his culture might not be exactly American, right? But he's got his mom and his pops that are putting him in the direction of his culture, which is religious. It's all about the specific type of food that they eat. And then he's got his relatives that might be just as like that are trying to pull him in the other direction, right? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to reword that into an explanation of why. Don't overthink it. An explanation of why you use that piece of evidence. So you can say something like, "This is important because his closest family was very traditional, but his relatives that would visit every once in a while, they weren't. They were born in the American version." Yeah, so that's what you, let me tell you something, you say something like that to me, after pulling that piece of evidence,